and at just 13 years old, knew without a doubt he won the competition with ease due to having way more muscle than any of the other kids at the show.
On July 6, 1972, a future powerhouse of bodybuilding was born, Lee Priest. While most children spent their afternoons on playgrounds, he grew up surrounded by iron plates, dumbbells, and the raw atmosphere of the gym. In his family, sport wasn't just a pastime, it was a way of life. His greatest inspiration stood right beside him, his mother.
School, he was in trouble all the time. He was the class clown. He was a very much loved boy.
Every year my mother would make me a new suit and a cape for the dog, and I always had Superman stuff.
A kid who you're going to force to go on at school. So we had to get special permission for Lee to leave school.
A dedicated bodybuilder herself, she brought him to competitions and gyms from a very young age.
Now, since the only way to spend quality time with Lee was at the gym, that was exactly what his mom did.
From then on, he just lived and breathed. Everything was bodybuilding.
While others were reading comic books, he was watching muscular athletes under bright stage lights, unknowingly shaping his future. At just 12 years old, he began lifting weights in earnest. What started as simple curiosity quickly transformed into relentless ambition. He trained with a focus and intensity far beyond his years. While his peers were still figuring out who they wanted to be, he was already building something extraordinary. As a teenager, he stepped onto the stage at local competitions and immediately turned heads. Not just because of his confidence, but because of his remarkable muscle mass at such a young age.
Yes, I won my first 3 bodybuilding shows when I was 13 years old. At 17, when I was still natural, I won my first overall Mr. Australia. From 14, I was 15, I was competing in men's open classes and beating open men.
In a sport often dominated by taller athletes, his compact, dense, and powerful physique made him impossible to ignore. This wasn't just talent. He won several junior titles in Australia at a young age, which quickly made his name known within the international bodybuilding community. His transition to the professional level through the IFBB marked the beginning of a career that would make him known worldwide. Lee Priest's success at a young age was no coincidence. He was known for his exceptional determination. While his peers spent their teenage years differently, he spent hours in the gym. Consistency was his greatest weapon. He trained for years without long breaks.
All you really need is a good training just to keep your mind, because I've always said, physically doing the training's easy.
His training style was intense, but not overly complicated. He strongly believed in heavy basic exercises such as bench presses, squats, and barbell curls. Instead of constantly searching for new methods, he perfected the fundamentals. He often trained with high volume and high repetitions, especially for his arms, the body part for which he ultimately became famous.
He understood early on that the path to greatness was paved with pain and sacrifice. He wanted legs and biceps like Eddie Robinson's, so he copied their training intensity centered around pushing to exhaustion.
You've got the 21-inch arms there. Oh.
He was also distinguished by his genetic potential. Lee naturally had full muscle bellies and responded extremely well to strength training. His arms grew exceptionally fast, giving him a clear visual advantage on stage at an early age. Lee Priest was also mentally highly competitive. He did not just want to participate, he wanted to win. As a teenager, he already traveled internationally to gain experience against stronger competitors. That early exposure to the highest level forced him to mature faster within the sport. His nutrition at the time was simple but effective. High calories, high protein, and no fear of gaining significant weight in the off-season to build mass. He was known for becoming extremely heavy during his bulking phases, then aggressively cutting down in preparation for competitions. That combination of discipline, early competition experience, and strong genetics allowed Lee to compete with major names in the sport at a young age. Lee Priest was known not only for his physique, but also for his personality.
Lee's been through some controversy in life, which is very, very interesting. We're going to dig into this a little bit. And what Lee did, he's still alive and he's healthy.
He had an outspoken and direct way of speaking. While many bodybuilders remained diplomatic, Priest often said exactly what he thought. He regularly expressed criticism of judging decisions, the direction in which bodybuilding was evolving, and the increasing emphasis on extreme mass over aesthetics.
You said that. Yeah, I have said a lot of controversial things, you know. Someone asked me a question. Of course I'm going to be passionate about it, so I'm like a bull at a gate. I just go straight for the subject and get straight into it, and that could come across as rude or brash and stuff like that.
His honesty made him popular among fans, but also created tensions within official organizations. Physically, he was especially known for his arms, which were often compared to those of icons like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ronnie Coleman. Despite his relatively short stature, he often secured podium finishes through sheer muscle mass. He built a reputation as a people's champion, someone who stayed close to his fans and was not afraid to challenge the established order. In 2007, things suddenly went wrong. A conflict arose between Lee Priest and the IFBB.
And Wayne was starting up this new organisation. I just figured, you know, I'd give it a go. And people were like, oh, look at Lee, he's throwing this in the IFBB's face. It was just a different organisation competing with different people. The competing and where I was, the fame and that, or money, that doesn't matter to me.
The reason was his participation in competitions organized by a competitor federation, namely NABA. At the time, the IFBB enforced strict rules. Professional athletes were not allowed to compete in events of other federations without consequences.
I signed on to do the show. I'm happy to take the 2-year suspension. If those are the rules, they're the rules. I'll take the 2-year suspension, which I did. I got a year's suspension, and then Bob was like, well, Lee, if you don't do the other show, I'll just be 1 year. If you do, it'll be 2 years. I said, look, and in 2008, I got my pro card back, and at the same time, my grandfather passed away, so I moved back home to.
When Priest decided to participate anyway, he was suspended and effectively lost his IFBB professional status. This decision did not come completely out of nowhere. Priest had already had a strained relationship with the organization for some time. He was critical of judging decisions and the policies within the federation. His move was seen by many as an act of independence. The suspension meant that he could no longer compete in prestigious competitions such as Mr. Olympia, the highest stage in professional bodybuilding. For an athlete at his level, that was a major setback.
Around 2010, I was just like, you know what, I just don't have that passion anymore to compete. I'm like, fuck you, IFBB, I've had a gutful. It's just because my grandfather passed away and that he was going to help me, but because he wasn't there, I just lost that passion and fire. So that's the main reason I got out of competing in the IFBB. It wasn't because he was always there when I was younger to help me get ready for shows and prepare for shows, and when he passed away.
His ban lasted several years until he was eventually allowed back into IFBB-related competitions around 2013 to 2014. During this period, he focused not only on competitions, but also on his presence within the fitness industry. He gave seminars, appeared at expos, and built a strong online following through social media. There, he shared unfiltered opinions about training, nutrition, and the state of modern bodybuilding. In addition, Lee Priest remained involved in the sport as a mentor figure. Many young athletes sought his advice, especially on arm training and mass building. His return was less about titles and more about passion. He appeared more relaxed and less focused on the political side of the sport. It was clear that bodybuilding had become more of a lifestyle for him than a battle for recognition. Around 2015, Lee Priest definitively stepped away from professional competitive bodybuilding.
I did speak well at the IFBB, but for some reason, people always like to dwell on the negative and anything. So if there was another show that wasn't well run, I'd say I was just relaying what the fans were telling me, what the fans would post. So
He continued training, but no longer with the goal of competing at the highest level. After his active career, he lived for a considerable time in the United States, especially in Los Angeles, before eventually returning to Australia. Besides fitness, he had another major passion: motorsports. He was involved in drag racing and invested significant time in his cars and racing activities. His life became calmer and less focused on extreme physical preparation. Still, he remained a recognizable voice within the bodybuilding community. Through interviews and social media, he continued to share his unfiltered perspective. Today, Lee Priest is remembered as one of the most unique and outspoken personalities the sport has ever seen. Did you find this video interesting? Don't forget to like and subscribe,